I am ready.
We're
I am
ready
so ready.
for episode 64.
Are you ready?
I'm super ready. 64. Can you believe it? And we're going to talk Black Mirror.
Yeah.
What's your history with Black Mirror before we talk about this new season on Netflix that just dropped on the 15th?
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you were introduced to it? What's your history with it?
I do. And it's funny because I thought I was a little late to it, but this was years ago. I had friends tell me, a friend at work tell me about Black Mirror. This, at that point, I think it was only being referred to as like this, BBC show.
Right. Yeah.
And the first iteration of this show was, I would say, almost 100% British. Yeah. And then it slowly started becoming American, and it was almost like this funny hybrid of American actors popping up, like the John Hamm in the Christmas episode.
Right.
It just certainly evolved, and I think a lot of people are not happy with the evolution of this show.
Really?
I
am. I'm fine with it.
Same.
What is their criticism?
Same. Well, I think first and foremost, they're kind of complaining like how Americanized it has become and how it's not as technology focused. Certainly not all the episodes.
Oh, that's
I think
that's a fair criticism.
Their biggest problem. Yeah,
I will say in not every episode, but in the majority of the episodes in this new season, I was like, when's the Black Mirror aspect gonna pop up?
Right.
I was like,
right.
Usually within 5 seconds of me saying that, we find out that, Joan is her own TV show.
Right.
Right. I can get that. That being said, I don't necessarily mind it, but you're right. It's become more of Twilight Zone-y, I guess, than it was initially.
Yeah.
Like seriously rooted in tech. Is there a favorite episode you have? Not in
all time
of all time.
Wow. For a long time, I think it was an early episode that was almost a parody of American Idol.
Oh, I love that.
Do you remember that episode?
The credits,
yeah,
like
that was
5 million credits or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there was almost a similar, I think Rashida Jones even wrote the episode later where, this one felt like the most Black Mirror to me, is that you can rate somebody. And,
amazing episode. That was, what's his name's daughter? Who's in Jurassic Park?
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard. I love that. I used to show that to my students because it was such a profound episode.
Yeah.
Those are definitely at the top of mine as well. They'd be in my top 5 or 6. White Bear is probably top 1, 2, or 3 for me, but I think my favorite of all time is one of the newer ones. It's USS Callister, because I heard there was actually going to be a spin-off series of its own based on this. Kristen Milotti.
This was the Jesse.
Yes, the Jesse
Plemons.
Plemons, yes. Essentially is able to take the DNA of humans in the real world and then create a digital version of them that has all of their everything, mind, spirit, body.
Yeah.
And we kind of see that start to bleed over into this one, that same sort of idea. But we aren't just going to go through it 1 through 6. We're going to kind of break it down in terms of our favorites of season 6 here. Bottom, as we tend to do. This is not as that official ranking as we've done in the past, because I think ours is probably going to vary considerably. So we're going to be talking about, Let's start with which one did you not like the most in this new season?
Well, I thought all 5 of them were very strong episodes. And I agree. And I think my least favorite, I'll say, was Demon 79.
Really?
And I felt like this one wasn't Black Mirror-esque. This one felt more like Tales from the Crypt, which, again, I love. But if I'm putting it up there with these other Black Mirror episodes, I kind of felt it was more of like the monkey paw, you have 3 wishes type of thing.
It's a reverse genie, a reverse monkey paw situation. I totally get why you would put it at the bottom. I put it at number 2, believe it or not, only because I absolutely thought she had the best character arc out of any of the characters in any of these episodes, out of anybody. You see such a change within her. These episodes are long too. I know, like they are. It's an hour and 20 minutes, which is essentially a movie.
Also feature film.
I found Gop, this demon in Demon 69, so charming, even though he was convinced he wanted to murder people. But you're right. There is absolutely nothing Black Mirror-y about it. There's no tech involved at all, as far as I can remember, right? So,
no, not that I can think of either.
That's a good point, because there's another one that doesn't really have anything, but it still uses a piece of technology. And interestingly, that's my last one, is Maisie Day.
Which that's my number 1.
Interesting.
I loved it.
My favorite, I guess, sequence of the entire 6 is in Maisie Day. Once the reveal happens and she becomes a werewolf, that's amazing. That's some of the best stuff I've ever seen when it comes to horror at all. Up till then, I struggled with the character Maisie's having the hit and run, and then she's all plagued by these. It just was overdone to me in the first 3/4 of it, and I wasn't seeing the connection to Black Mirror. It really didn't, with the exception, I guess, of the paparazzis and the cameras and how these people are kind of just machines themselves, and they're not actually human anymore. They've become, paparazzi are arguably the scum of the earth, no? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think so. They have inadvertently, or directly, they kind of show it, like, push buttons to get reactions out of celebrities, and they, man, they're like, scum of the earth. They won't let you live your life.
Since it was your first, let's talk about your 6 again a little further, because what I did really love about this and why it's so high on my list is just the way that it dealt with the bureaucracy of demons and such, about how he kind of like had to get his quota, make sure that she got this done. Otherwise, he himself would have been thrown into this existential void. Like, through a demon, there are punishments, and that's nothingness, which is so interesting, because a lot of people would actually think the afterlife is that anyways, but through the lens of this world, that's not the case. And there are these angels and demons sort of scenarios, and nothingness is the hell to a demon, which I really liked. Something I hadn't seen before. Just the way that it kind of deals with kind of the moral issue of the death penalty too, because certainly the first guy that she kills arguably deserved to die. We see that he was molesting his daughter, and awful person. I was okay with him going. Did you buy that she would have gotten so heated with the visions that he gives her that she would have just thwacked him over the head? Did you think it was?
Oh, I didn't have a problem with that.
Okay, all right. I was, because it just I didn't seem to be a snap, because then she just has so much trouble getting to that second kill. That first one was so impulsive.
Impulsive, it weighs on her, which makes it more difficult, So, that's the hardest thing about ranking these, because I don't want to necessarily pick out the things that I don't like about it, because I really did still enjoy it. I just didn't feel like it was the most Black Mirror-esque episode out there. I really did enjoy the fact that it felt like they blurred the lines between good and evil, where Gop almost felt like a guardian angel at times, and he's a demon, and I loved that. I loved the world that this was in, and ultimately the politician. And I think if you really have to look at the Black Mirror or find some sort of connection here, is that they really could take a look at, even though this, I believe it takes place in 1979, right? Isn't that why it's called 79?
Yes.
I don't know. In that time period, is that it still felt very relevant as far as where data politics and racism and how immigration is still such an issue, not just here in America, but everywhere. Refugees right now, and that people aren't willing to accept people into their community. I felt like that was very common today. And I think that was what felt the most Black Mirror about that episode, if you needed to find out. The guy is like almost like a Donald Trump, like
100%.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm going to cut it a little bit of a slack when it comes to the mirror aspect, because I think the show's going to have to evolve, and there's a reason it's been so long since the last season. But you're absolutely right in that it is mirroring. It's a dark reflection of what we are currently dealing with now. It just happens to happen in '79 and.
That was what the reference to Black Mirror is. It's the front of the iPhone.
Right.
It calls the Black Mirror. So it is exactly what you said. It's holding the mirror up to our society. And so, I felt like it was still a very well told story.
Fun lead too. I hadn't seen her before, and even Gop, the guy who plays the demon that's in charge of her, he was great. I liked, again, kind of like the first episodes where you have these kind of characters you've never seen, or actors you've never seen before, and in such quality fare that I don't know. It immediately puts them on the map. I feel like a good episode of Black Mirror will immediately put you on the map. I didn't have a whole lot of love, I guess, for Ron Howard's daughter. What's her name again? I always forget it.
Bryce Dallas
Howard. Until that episode, and then I've kind of been on board with her since. So I feel like you can't really beat Black Mirror for a showcase. And even we see Jesse Pinkman in one later, and he was the voice at the very end of my favorite USS Callister. So I don't know. Charlie Brooker knows what he's doing. That's for sure.
I would say that it's probably another criticism about this series right now is that it seems like, who could we get? What big celebrity names could we get to be the stars of this? Which it goes against what you just said, like it's a nice platform for launching a career.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, let's talk my second least favorite, because sadly it's kind of contradictory of what we just talked about, because it's the only other one where I didn't know anybody in it. Well, I did know the old lady, but that's Lock Henry comes in at number 4 for me. I'm not sure that lands.
I enjoyed Lock Henry.
I liked it.
Number 3 for me.
I liked them all, but Lock Henry comes in there only because I saw it coming. I didn't find it as unpredictable as I wanted, and it was another one where the Black Mirror aspect was a little off, or not even existent at all on them making a film, I guess. But to me, it's the sins of a tale that I don't know. I really enjoyed it though, because I love the performance of the old lady. I've seen her in one other thing that's on BritBox, where she's actually based on a true story of this husband who pretends like he's dead, and then the wife has to pretend like he is too. Even they lie to their kids and stuff just so he can get the insurance.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's really good, and I look forward to seeing more of her. But did you not see it coming?
Oh no, I did. I enjoyed this, and I was going to say that I did recognize a couple faces. The barkeep, the old man there, he's been, he's in the Mummy movies. He was the star of Spartacus. He's great. And then the young bartender is from Game of Thrones. He was Podrick. But the thing I liked about this was I felt that there was a Black Mirror story there, and it was the obsession with true crime. I mean, a really great reference to this episode, Lock Henry, happens in Joan is Awful when they're trying to find something on Streamberry. They say, what about Loch Ness? And it's like,
most of them on
Lock Henry.
Streamberry, because I know Beyond the Sea was the one he said, no, I've heard bad things about it. Let's not watch Beyond the Sea. That was so cool.
Yeah, and then
forecast what's going to come.
I loved that. And then they talk about Lock Henry. They're like, not another. If I have to watch another true crime story right now, and I felt like it's a really great mirror, holding a mirror up to Netflix, which I thought was kind of like the overarching theme for this whole season.
I'll give you that, yeah.
And the obsession with true crime, completely blurred. I forget the Pia. Her she literally became obsessed with this story. This is the movie we're making, and it ultimately leads to her own death. And I thought, there's your Black Mirror. It's like the cultural phenomenon on just true crimes
glorified and like spend most of our watch time on is the dehumanizing of people. It shows our inhumanity more than anything else. And to then be willing to put your own boyfriend through that, even though you've gone there to
he had a personal connection to it. His own father, even though we find out later, which was a great little twist. But yeah, I think ultimately what you were saying about like how we kind of like glorify these, but we're also not thinking of the victims. We're not thinking of all the people that these serial killers who are now like stars, the people that they've actually hurt and the families that they have destroyed. And I thought that was sort of the Black Mirror message in this episode.
So celebrities are people that have left enough horror in their path to get their own true crime series. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Are you watching any true crime now, just to kind of acknowledge this?
I don't
watch any of it. Okay, that's fair.
I don't actually care for it. I kind of watch the things I watch as an escapism. You know, like I like to escape into like fantasy or certain horror movies, but I can't watch the true crime stuff as much as other people. I think it's like, you know, like it's just too real.
It really is.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like reality television. Yeah, I just don't tend to watch real life.
Don't love it like other people love it, but one comes up that's particularly interesting. I want to watch it. I Mara's a huge fan too. It's just one of those things. I'll make her watch a horror, and then we'll watch Shiny Happy People, or what are we watching now? That Friend of the Family. Yeah, it's like, why are we glorifying these people? And then you're right. I totally get it. I do, and in that sense, you're absolutely right. And I miss that aspect of it. It is speaking to our obsession with the worst aspect of ourselves, and that's tragic.
And how a lot of it lives on Netflix, and that's why I think I just thought that was like, oh man, they were really holding the mirror up to themselves. And the other thing is that I think the other social commentary on it is that it tends to, and I could get shot down really quick, but a large population, the female population, tends to like the true crime more than the male population.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I don't know. So they made Pia the character who's obsessing over it, and then the boyfriend who's like, I just wanted to do the story about the egg guy.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, that is dealing with gender issues as well, in a way that I wasn't as cognizant of. I guess I didn't love the end. Did you love how it finished?
No, I thought that it was sort of
I didn't enjoy the whole aspect of, it was made because the mother did leave all the horrific content that she made tapes, with her husband in the death dungeon. And I liked kind of the moment where he's looking at the BAFTA award and it's a mask. And of course, his mom famously wore that mask when she was doing the killings. It just was a little anticlimactic. Maybe that's it. Like, if you watch these things, you're just left hollow. It's like, what is the point? How did that enrich you in any way other than to make you more scared of people? Even potentially the people closest to you that you would have never suspected. So looking back on it, I'm more appreciative, I guess, of what they were trying to do. But in the moment, especially after the Joan one, which I liked more, that ending was just so badass. I left wanting a little bit, but I get why it was done that way. That being said, like, I was so tired when we started these Netflix. It was late-ish, and I just was exhausted. And I was like, we can't watch anything that's going to put me to sleep. And we watched the first episode, and then we watched all of them. I was up for the rest of the night, sort of cruising.
I know.
That's what Black Mirror does to you.
It really does. You may not love the ending of each one, but their stories are just so good, and like they're really original too. They really find the stories. Yeah,
absolutely.
So you had mentioned Joan is awful. Like, I put it in my 4 slot because
it's my favorite.
I don't know. It certainly wasn't my favorite. I liked as soon as you saw what was happening, and the whole idea of like everybody just always scrolls down and agrees to whatever app is like, hey, do you agree to these terms? And then you do it. I thought it was a really fun story, and then the Inception version of it, and it may have been the most Black Mirror
Absolutely was.
out of this season, which is funny because it was one of my least favorites of the season. So maybe I'm not.
So it's not that bad, right? I mean,
Well, no, but
it's your fourth. You said it's your fourth.
yeah.
Okay, it was my fourth.
But what I'm saying is though that I'm part of the problem, right? Like I don't necessarily need the Black Mirror stories to be as Black Mirror, apparently, like because I love anthology horror. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the actors were great. I loved the cameo from Michael Cera. It was so funny.
That pretty much kept it up in the top 3 for me because of his performance.
Yeah.
First of all, you don't see Michael Cera coming from like anywhere, and then there he suddenly is, like the tech guy who's explaining the most impossible thing to understand. My poor mom who's like texting me while she's watching this. Am I just too old to understand this? I just don't know what is going on. And like the whole Source Jones stuff, and there's endless Jones essentially, in the sense that Black Mirror, it's just like because you have these endless realities. It's like in a fun house where you're seeing endless mirror images of oneself. And just like I do think it's the most timely because especially in this last year, just the preponderance of people's fears and hopes for AI, what it can do, what it might do that will destroy us or enhance us. In that sense, I really liked it. I also really liked the performances, and there is nothing more memorable, I would say, in all of the episodes than Joan defecating in the church.
Oh my god! And it was so funny because you're like I kind of think I know what she's up to. She wants to ruin this, but I did not see where it was going.
Oh my goodness! And that's Salma Hayek having to see herself defecating in the church.
God.
That's the part that kind of confused me. Was that okay? So Salma Hayek's in that as herself, but this is not the real Joan as herself. That's where it starts to get a little muddled for me. You know what I mean? When I know. Does Salma Hayek then exist in the base level, or is Salma Hayek only a actress within this secondary level? That's where I start to get a little confused myself.
Yeah, it was, and I think that's kind of. Now, I don't want to say like that was the intent, but I think I like that I don't fully understand it.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the point is like this technology that's forever changing and adapting is going to be harder and harder to understand, like how it's actually doing it.
And I just want to ask, is the end happy ending or a tragic ending in your eyes? Because this,
I thought it was a happy ending.
I have the capacity to think on their own. It's acknowledged that even though she has a Source Joan, she is thinking independently. And then Salma Hayek's character does do slightly things within the show, and Kate Blanchett is Salma Hayek. They're able to potentially have slight free will there. So when they do destroy the quantum computer, even though they are technically destroying these digital beings were self-aware. And is that different than killing real people? That's what I mean. It's fun than like Joan's now friends with the actual actress Annie Murphy and all that stuff. But I don't know. I thought that was more tragic than it let on, honestly, because we don't know simulations either.
Well, there's that, but I think the thing that you pull from it, at least that I did, was that when she was in therapy and she said she wasn't the star or like the main character in her own story, she then learns to become it, and she opens her own coffee place, and to me that was the happy ending, is that she's no longer part of society's simulation that you're supposed to have this corporate job where you really just shit on people, and not the church scene shit, but the fact that she fires the girl and says sorry, and then drops a cigarette on her.
I mean, it certainly is the most positive of all the endings. But let's talk. Yeah, it was taking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say it was certainly the funniest episode, and aren't meant to be, but this one was.
It kind of reminiscent of the pig effer one, the very first one, right? I don't know. Similar vibe to me to that one. But my number one sounds like it's your number two, Beyond the Sea.
Oh yeah, I would have guessed from the very beginning. We should have done this. That I knew yours was going to be number 2. My number 1 was Macy Day because I love werewolves, and I did not see that twist coming at all.
I didn't.
I loved it. And then as soon as you know, you're like, oh man, yeah, that's why they changed her up. Like that's why. I mean, it was kind of fun to figure out. And
I was so confused because my head initially went toward what happens in the next one, or was more of this horrible sexual thing going on, and then
right
comes and rip people's throats out and is able to chase them like no other werewolf I've ever seen in anything ever. And it was one of the best transformation. You didn't see enough of it, but the moments of transformation that you did see were great. Like American Werewolf Paris or London. What's the one that's really great? It's the London, right?
London.
So freaking amazing in terms of effects wise.
I was going to say the same thing. Is that it's been a while since and technology is there, right? But that we actually got to see the transformation and the grotesque, body horror aspect of it, and yet the paparazzi are still like taking their photos until they're dead. I mean, idiots.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
comic moment too. Also comic and just like absolutely horrific. But I was so happy to see, with the exception of Victor. Victor was the only one I didn't necessarily want to die because he did seem to have a genuine friendship with Bo. Yeah, Zazzy's character, and
Zazzy Beats. Yeah.
I just love the scene in the diner too. It was so freaking great. They even give like characterization to that cop when he's talking about how good the chicken is, and I don't know. It's like,
oh, I know.
Almost everybody that's slaughtered, with the exception of a couple maybe people sitting at the booth. It just had such an amazing effect that last 10 minutes of that episode. It was the best sequence in all of the episodes by far.
Agreed. And I loved like the lore that they shot this in Eastern Europe, and that's of course where you'll get that type of folklore. The thing that I would suggest though to connect this to how is this Black Mirror is not just how tabloids sort of run the shelves and like the obsession of what we have with celebrities, but the things that people want to see. I mean, the last shot that Zazie Beetz takes is actually
her killing
the star killing herself.
Yeah,
and it's gross. The things that we want to see, and I really thought they kind of nailed that.
That's fair. I mean, it's like Lock Henry in that it is our obsession with the worst aspects of humanity.
Yeah.
Because she then herself becomes machine-like in that she knows she has to take this picture because it's going to be worth bajillions. I just thought it was so funny too when Victor's got his like throat completely ripped out, but he's got a little mustard left in him to hand her the camera. It's just like so sweet. Sweet of him to give her the camera. I did love
what a guy.
And I could watch that end sequence over and over again. I will say though, when she's turning, the turning part I love, but the flashes were a little much for me. If I had like seizures or something, or epilepsy, that would have been a problem because it was a little overwhelming, the flashes. And I guess that was the point. It was a visceral experience.
That was the point.
They might deal with themselves. But yeah, there should have, was there a warning? There should have been a warning at the beginning if you're epileptic. Don't watch.
There should have been.
Yeah.
There may have been. But let's talk about my number 2. Your number 1 was Beyond the Sea. And I think this is probably the most talked about. Even before the season started, everyone's like, oh yeah, Aaron Paul's going to be okay. But yeah, I thought this story was really, really good. Really, really thought out. And also just really cool, the concept, not just of them being in space and having the body here, but what would happen if you couldn't have your body or something terrible happens back on Earth. And what a great story.
I freaking loved it. I mean, the premise itself, I feel, is super original.
Yes.
And I did not see the end coming. The end was really, really surprising because I thought he was just going to kill Aaron Paul's character, right? And leave him stuck outside.
Yeah.
So that I loved. I will say it was Shakespearean in that you could kind of see the movements. I mean, Shakespearean's a good thing to be called, but you could kind of see, I knew that he was going to lend his body to Josh Hartnett or to David as the character.
100%.
I knew that David and Lana were going to kind of fall in love. You saw all these pieces before they actually fell into place, but the payoff in the way that Aaron Paul was able to pull off Josh Hartnett's character, like I honestly legitimately saw Josh Hartnett in Aaron Paul. He must have practiced like hell, but just even the way that he furrowed his brows and said specific words, I thought was like so amazing. Just like guest star Emmy for sure for that. The cast is unparalleled, I feel like, out of all of them. My favorite cast by far. Josh Hartnett, I had mixed feelings about, but he's kind of won me over in this. I like a lot of the stuff he does. 30 Days, 30 Nights is so badass.
Love it.
He did look a little...
I honestly think
does he have a lot of work done or something? He looked a little...
No, I think that's it. I think that the man doesn't age, kind of like Keanu Reeves. Wow. And I think that's why it seems so jarring. But I would say he's a very underrated performer because, you know, he started his career, you know, he tended to do some like teen stuff or like...
You gotta get...
Well, Faculty's amazing. But you remember, like, what was it, 40 Days and 40 Nights or whatever it was, where he couldn't masturbate? Like,
right.
I mean,
trash.
I think that was, like, a bad choice for, you know, his career.
River Park, too. I kind of want to go back to that.
Yeah.
As him and Rose Byrne, I'm worried it's going to be kind of like the 40 Days, 40 Nights. Wait, what's the vampire?
Right.
Because now I'm getting confused between the him not being...
30 Days of Night.
Oh, my gosh. Those too similar.
30 Days of Night, and
Yeah, that's amazing.
I also love.
Ben Foster is the bad guy in that. Such a good movie. You should visit that one like tonight.
Yeah,
so good. But you're right. I think he's really underrated at this point. I'm surprised he hasn't done much other than that Penny Dreadful, which I couldn't get into, and I don't blame him. I think it was writing. It's just I couldn't get invested in it. I should go back for another shot at it. But I think he's a lot like a Brolin. I don't know. For me, I kept seeing like, is he like a long lost Brolin brother or something? I see a lot of that characteristics in there. But just the interaction between those two in space, that's really sadistic, heart-wrenching ending, where he just kicks the chair for him like, what are you going to do? You're going to kill me? Then you're going to kill yourself because we need two people up here.
My God.
Just like... I don't know. It affected me in the best way. I will say it was a little slow from the get-go.
Yeah.
It took me a minute. It was one of the more overt, this is Black Mirror, because you knew immediately this is not his real body. There's a robot. What's going on there? I appreciate knowing that from the outset. But until you get the Manson-esque Culkin in there, and I didn't see that coming at all either. Like, what happens to his family is just so horrific.
It is horrific, and they burn his body. He's forced to watch. It's one of the worst case scenarios you could draw up.
And that would ruin a person to see the people you love the most slaughtered in front of your eyes, and then be stuck with somebody who has a life that you personally feel like doesn't appreciate what he has. He's a ruined person. So at the end, like when we meet him at the beginning, wouldn't have made sense. But after what he's gone through, like that trauma changed him, I feel like.
Absolutely. And I think you have compassion for him, because not only is he at times literally alone, but we learn that Aaron Paul's character is he's not a charismatic, outgoing person who's I think he took the lead from his wife. It wasn't necessarily his idea to share his body. His wife suggests it. He is later referred to as a cold person. And we get that in the first interaction they have in space. It's like, well, see you next Friday. And you're like, why don't they hang out and be buds? But it's, and maybe if they were closer friends, Josh Hartnett's character wouldn't have crossed that line. I don't know. It makes you question all these things about our
I will give credit in that I did think she would kind of transgress a little bit more than she did. I was impressed that you kind of put him in his place, because up till then I was super sorry for Josh Hartnett, but then when he's like, he'll never know, you know you want it sort of stuff, I was like, okay, Josh Hartnett, you've officially entered creeper mode, or Josh Hartnett in your call. But I did appreciate her character, and that made it that much heart-wrenching for us when then we know that she got slaughtered, probably similar to how his family did at the end.
Yeah.
Did you want to? I kind of wanted to see what happened to them a little bit. I mean, that then speaks to what Maisie and Loch Ness is pointing at.
Exactly.
But the less more thing, I guess, is what happened. The blood on the walls too is just so graphic. Josh Hartnett is doing this to really, really destroy this man, similar to how he's destroyed. And just, I don't know. It was an interesting story about two guys, I feel like, that aren't necessarily friends, but have to deal with one another and it's like a strange, sinister rivalry sort of thing. I don't know. I loved it though, and it was by far my favorite.
Yeah, and it makes you think. And the thing that this episode left me with was, how are they going to coexist? Will they eventually get over this? Because they have like 4 more years together up there.
Yep.
Will they eventually move on and like learn to, or will they just never speak to each other again? It's just sort of like haunting that they leave you.
Yeah. And I'm just curious because Aaron Paul's character still has his replica. I mean, that is there. So how does that work? Do they eventually?
Yeah.
Okay.
But didn't you also think that he might be framed for murder?
Yes, that too. But people do know he's a replica. But you're absolutely right. It's going to be clear because people aren't going to realize that Josh Hartnett was in his body. So even if it is a replica, they're going to assume it was Aaron Paul's character, Cliff in there to begin.
Yeah.
There's plausible deniability for Josh Hartnett's like, well, he never let me in there. Can you trace that happened? Is there like DNA signatures of who's going in there? You don't know. But you're right.
There's also
a possibility.
But there's also the idea that Aaron Paul will never go back to his replica because he's never going to want to have to relive that.
Yeah. That's very.
And then there's also something about how no one really knows that the wife and son are out there, so no one's going to do a welfare check on them. It's just
true.
Yeah.
It was powerful. It was definitely the most powerful.
Yeah, it was.
Like I said, Shakespearean, I feel like it was as close to Shakespeare as you get dealing with sci-fi shit. So 100%. I give it 100%. And frankly, when I was looking at the ratings on IMDb, I think this was the one that was number 1 too. So people liked it. I think Jonah's Awful was second. But anyways.
Yeah.
I think we covered it. Perhaps
we did
talk about earlier episodes of Black Mirror down the line, but until then, bye, folks.